Hey there, welcome to a new Photoshop tutorial. Today I have a quick photo effect that I want to show you. I want to show you how you can apply this photo effect to a portrait. And let me show you the original image, which is this. So I'm going to show you how to get from this to this. We will only use adjustment layers, so it will not be anything very complicated. I hope you like it, and let's get started. So because we're only going to use adjustment layers, you can create an action for this, and that's very handy because you can apply the same effects to different images very easily. So what I have to do now is close this image and open, close the PSD and open the image, which is this one. So what I will do is I will open this actions panel, and I'll save the action in my folder. I'll create a new action. I'll call it, I don't know, fantasy photo effect, and that's it. And now the action is being recorded. You're not recording time, just actions, menus, and everything that you add. In fact, you can leave this open here to see how this is being recorded. So the first thing I want to do is create a copy of the background layer. Now also keep in mind that the actions work differently if you have Photoshop in a different language. For example, if I save this action and I'll give you this action, it might not work exactly the same on your Photoshop because it's looking for the same layer names, I think. I'm not sure. So as I said, what I want to do now is create a copy by pressing Ctrl-Command-J, and you can see here on the palette, on the panel, I can see the new action being recorded. And I will turn this into a smart object just in case I want to modify the settings here. And next I will go to Image, Adjustments, and choose Shadows and Highlights. What I want to do is reduce the contrast on this image. I'll give you the exact numbers that I have here. So for the shadows I have 15, tonal width 55, and the radius, I used a quite big radius, 200 pixels, and you can see the before and after. Okay, now for the highlights I have 10, tonal width 25, and the radius 170. Now highlights, the more you increase the amount here, the more you drop the highlights, but here the image is burned totally, so there's not much to recover. But you might have to change this slightly depending on your image. As I said, the result is to add more light on the image and reduce the contrast. And here on the color corrections, I'll leave this to 0, but I'll change the midtone contrast to -10. Okay, that way reduce a bit of the contrast, and I'll click OK now. Great. The next thing I want to do is add some light, add some darkness on this part of the image. This might work different for your portrait. If you have a source of light somewhere else, you might have to move this around, or not even needing this new layer that I'm going to add. So what I will add is a gradient. Okay, make sure that you have black to transparent, so set this to black and set this to black as well, and we have the black to transparent. Click OK, and I'll change the style to radial, and I'll reverse it because I want to have this hole here. And what I want to do now is increase the scale. Now something like that, maybe about 200 or something like that. I just want to have the light here and darken a bit this part here on the bottom. But as I said, your image might not need this, so judge it for yourself. I'll click OK, and I'll change the blend mode of this adjustment to soft light. Okay, and you can see how it changes. It makes this part a bit darker, but it's too dark, so I'll drop it to about 50% or maybe even 40 or something like that. Great. Now let's move on and add a curves adjustment. Now here what we need to do is go inside each of these channels here, and we will change the output to 20 on all of the channels, just the output on the bottom point. Okay, so let's select this one as well. This is similar to the previous tutorial that I made with another photo effect that I made, and 20 here as well. And now we have a 20 input on all of the channels, and on the RGB you might need to add more light or not. In my image I added 2 points here, one with output 161 and 185, and then a second point to drop a bit the shadow as well, to recover some of that darkness there, to 83 and 98. Okay, so this is the curves adjustment that I have for this image. Again, see the before and after. Now here on the action that I'm recording, it's also recording every time I show and hide a layer, but I can delete those after I finish the tutorial. Okay, let's move on and add a selective color now. This will allow us to reduce the contrast even more. You can see we've gone a long way now, even with just a few adjustments. You can see the before and after we add a lot more light on the image. Now here we're just going to work on the blacks, and here on the left, on the last slider here, we can reduce the amount of black on the blacks, which means we add more light. Okay, so I'll set this to -10, and here you can also color the deepest shadows, the blacks. You can add more magenta, for example, or you can add more blue. I'll add a bit more blue. Well, actually I'll give you the exact numbers that I have: 2, 5, -14 and -10. Okay, so these are the numbers that I have here for the blacks. We will not touch the neutrals or the whites, but depending on your image, if you want to try it, go ahead. Next, a hue saturation adjustment layer, and here we're going to work on the reds, yellows, and all of these colors here. And for the reds I have 6 for the hue, then I have 57 for the saturation, and I have 15 for the lightness. So we changed a bit how the reds look, and that's why we set it to 6 to make them a bit more yellow. Then on the yellows I have -5, saturation to 20, and lightness to 13. Okay, and now let's go on the greens. Red, yellows, and greens are the colors that you'll have on pretty much every image that you work with. -38, oops, 38. Saturation 15, and lightness to 12. What I did here is I wanted to make the greens a little more yellowish. Okay, that's why I changed the hue that much. The other colors depend on your image. If you have blues, or like for the skies and things like that, you can change that as well. I will leave it like that, and for the master, you can also increase the saturation, let's say to 20. And now, of course, this is oversaturated, so we'll have to reduce the opacity. Let's try 50%. Even that is a bit too much, so let's leave it to 40%. Okay, you see the before and after. So we add a bit more life on the image. Okay, now let's create some glows of light. Now, again, this depends on your image. We have this portrait which is out on the field, so we can create a nice glow of light here. And for that, you can use a gradient. Actually, we will use 2 gradients. The first one, let's change the color of it to something yellow like this, and this one as well, like so. And we'll use this orange to transparent. Let's click OK, but we will change the style to radial, and let's put it somewhere here. Now, in order to move this around, you'll have to have this panel here opened, otherwise you will not be able to move it. So if you click OK, you will not be able to move it. The scale, I'll leave it to 100%, but you can change it. If you have a big image and you want a really soft effect, you can change that. I'll leave that there, click OK, and change the blend mode to soft light. And I will probably move it, so I'll have to double click again and move this around. I'm looking, see that? I'm looking on how the light falls on the girl's face and here on the branches. And I'll click OK. And now what I will do is duplicate this with Control-Command-J. Open this again. I'll probably change the colors to something not that saturated and a bit more towards the yellow. Okay, and I'll increase the scale to 130 maybe. And let's see how that looks like, and I'll leave it right here. Click OK, and now I'll change the blend mode of this to screen. Okay, it looks kind of strong to me. I will probably decrease the opacity to 50%, but the opacities that you use here actually depend on your own image and your own taste and how you want the image to be. Let's leave it to 60. Okay, and that's how I created this glow of light that makes this look a bit more dreamy, I think. Next, another color touch. You can leave it like that if you want, but I wanted to move on and I added a solid color. And here I will use this really strong tone of blue, really dark, maybe not that saturated. Or yes, let's leave it like that and we'll see. Click OK and change the blend mode of this to Exclusion. Now I did this in a lot of my tutorials and you can see the effect that we get. If you want less saturation, just move this towards the left, this on the color picker, or use a more saturated color, use a brighter tone, but I want to have something like this. The more you go towards the black, the less effect you get, okay? But what you can do is leave it really saturated like that and then reduce the opacity of the layer. What I will do though is leave it somewhere here and work with the layer opacity as well. Let's leave it to about 30%. Let's see how that looks. Maybe even less, 20. It depends on your taste, as I said, more saturated a bit. Okay, and the last thing I want to do is I want to add a bit more light on the girl's face, and for that I will use a levels adjustment. So I'll create the levels adjustment and I'll invert the layer mask by pressing Ctrl-Command-I, and now I'll increase the highlights like that. And then maybe that's too much. Okay, you can see nothing happened on the image because I have this layer mask that hides everything. But now what I will do now is get the brush tool, and with an opacity and flow of about 30, I think that's okay. You start to paint with a really soft brush, so hardness to 0. Paint some light on the girl's face just to illuminate her, maybe her eyes as well a bit, and her teeth. And maybe you can even add some glow here on her hair, like so, and some parts where you can see there's more light on the image. You can add some extra light here and there, wherever you think you can do it. Let's make sure we don't have the pen pressure on. Okay, and that's how I added this light. See the before and after? Just a touch of light on the girl's face, maybe on the eye. I painted too much. I'll probably have to take it off. Okay, and that's how I created this effect. One other thing you can do, you can add a photo filter on top of everything and change the blend mode to hue. Okay, and now from here you can use whatever tone you like. You can use a cooling filter if you want. That's too strong. Let's drop the opacity to about 40%. Maybe a deep red or green. Okay, so whatever you like. Let's leave it to 20. I'll leave it like that. And if you want an even extra dreamy effect, what you can do is create a stamp. I'll press Shift, Alt, Control E. You can also press Ctrl-Command-A to select everything and then go to Edit, Copy, Merged, and then go to Edit, Paste, and you can see you paste everything. It's just merging all the layers onto a new layer. And what I do now is go to Filter, Blur, and choose Fill Blur. And I'll add about 10 or 15 pixels of blur. It depends on the size of your image. I'll leave it to 15. Click OK. And this softens the image. And now you change the blend mode to soft light. And the problem that I see here is that it oversaturates the image and it puts back a lot of the contrast that I worked so hard to get rid of. So what I will do is use the hue saturation to desaturate the image quite a lot. And if you like it like that, like this, you can leave it like this. But you can also use the levels in order to reduce the contrast and pull this down a bit. Well, actually, play with the levels, with the midtones here, and get an effect like this. Okay, or you can also try screen. This really adds too much light on the image. That's why I like the soft light a lot more. So I'll leave it to about 50%. Let me show you the before and after. Without this blurring filter and with the blur filter. Okay, before and after. So it depends on what you like. Let's leave it to just 30%, just for a touch of dreamy effect. Okay, so that's the effect. Let me show you again the original, before and after, before and after. I think it's not a difficult effect to achieve. Let's stop the action. Now I'll have to clean this up. Actually, I'll redo everything and I'll give you the action as well if you want to use it. But well, that's all for today. I hope you liked this tutorial and see you next time.